and welcome to the speaker series presented by the Entrepreneurs Forum, which is a weekly event featuring industry leaders held every Thursday on Zoom. It's designed for learning and networking. We're open to guest speakers, and applications are welcome post-episode. Make sure to join us the first Thursday of each month for the Financial Canvas with Boris Blum, where he provides financial insights with industry leaders. The third Thursday of each month, we're joined by Tech Horizons with Cassie Millhouse, where you stay ahead of the latest technology trends. Fourth Thursday of each month, you're joined with the marketing maverick, Fritz Collinet, where you'll learn from the best in advertising and marketing. In today's episode, Radiant Resilience, our host, Jessica Carwatt, is joined by her guest speaker, Jana Bartlet Alonso. Welcome, Jessica and Hannah.
Hello, hello. I'm so excited that we're doing this today with Hannah. I would love for Hannah to just go ahead and introduce herself, because I could say a lot of great things about you. I've known Hannah for, I don't even know how many years, a lot of years, many years. And she's not only been a good friend of mine, but she's also been a coach and mentor for many years in my life. And I'm very grateful that she has been, because she's taught me a lot. She really helped me be the person I am today. So I'm very excited that I get to interview you, Hannah. So I would love for you to just tell us a little bit more about yourself, what it is that you do, who you are, and what makes you you.
Thank you, Jess. Yeah, it's always fun to get interviewed by a friend, client, student. But like Jess said, my name is Hannah. I know some of you guys might be seeing my name and it's written Jana. I always like to say that is not a spelling mistake. That is actually how you spell Hannah. I'm half Spanish, half English. I am the founder of the School of Integrative Healing, and actually my own system of healing, which I called Integrative Healing. This is a 7-figure business. I run other educational platforms, let's call it that, business, spirituality, healing. I also run a members club called the White Diamond Members Club. These are a few things that I do, but I'm excited to get into more conversations so you guys can hear who I actually am, right? Which is sometimes more interesting. And to share a bit of my story, I think anyone that goes into business, specifically in the topics of healing or wellness or spirituality, didn't necessarily come into it because it looked fun. There's usually a reason pretty early on, and that is definitely me. But that's what I do in a nutshell.
I love that. Thank you, Hannah, for sharing. And one of the things that, has always fascinated me about you is all of the modalities that you cover, right? You have so many different ways of teaching and so many different things that you put into your teachings, right? So it's not just only spirituality or only healing. It's so many different facets that you put into your work. And I would love for you to share what inspired you to do what you do today. How did you got to do what you do today?
So I think, sometimes when I share this, quite a few people relate. As a child, I remember looking at adults and going, they pretend that they know what they're doing, but no one's speaking about the important things. I remember feeling very deceived by adults. I was like, is this it? Like, you guys are busy, you're at work, your relationships don't work, you're pretending that all is well, but like, I know that it's not. I was the child that my uncle didn't want to look after because I would ask him questions that he didn't know how to answer. I now feel very sorry for him. Anyway, I repressed all of these psychic and intuitive abilities for many years until I was 19. And in 3 weeks, I was diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and eating disorder. And my mother was diagnosed with cancer. For context, I was doing a psychology undergrad where I very much felt, is this it? Is this really all that you've got? As you guys can hear from my accent, I'm also British. I was studying at a very top red brick university. I was like their poster child. I won awards of excellence for all of my final exams. I was offered a scholarship, and I kept feeling, guys, we're not talking about anything important. Yes, we've looked at memory 70 million times. Give this context, help people. And so when my mum got ill, it really started, and I got ill. It really started this journey of, well, this is what I'm conventionally being given. I'm being given medication. I'm being told that someone who does CBT might see me in a year and a half. I'm seeing my mother get ill and iller. I'm seeing that if I don't do something, that's my path. And so I started my personal journey from quite a desperate place, right? It was like, I find a solution or I don't want to do this anymore. And so I went to a lot of conventional, well, more accepted alternative modalities, right? I became a nutritionist. I did 2 diplomas in that. I did yoga, I did meditation. And then 3 years later, I get an email from my mother and it says, Hannah, the cancer is terminal. I'm going to pass away. You can imagine the conversation skills in my family. Bear in mind, my mum told me that she was going to pass away via email. I think that proves its point in itself. And I realized yoga, meditation, nutrition, all of these modalities, they have a function, but they weren't enough for what I needed. And I made a decision which really changed my life, which was I'm going to become a full-time caretaker at 23 years old. So I left my life in New Zealand. I went back and I really undertook the job of supporting my mother in her final 3 years. And at the time, I was very frustrated. I was very frustrated because my friends were partying, right? I'd see the pictures on Facebook and they're like, we went to this beach and then we went to Thailand. And I was like, well, I've been to 3 hospitals and a hospice. And it was worlds apart. But again, I started asking myself bigger questions. And the questions were things like, well, Han, clearly we're mortal. What do you want to fill your life with? Clearly, you know, people pass away. My mother passed away not satisfied with her life. That was the message that she passed down to me. Life is hard, life is suffering. And it was this, God, I don't want to pass this down to my kids. So I became hungry. I became hungry to find out more. And the timeline that my mother's life was on meant that I moved very fast. So I started studying trauma, shamanism, energetic modalities, just anything that I could find. And, you know, you hear this saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. For me, this was Chris Walker's Spirit of the Inca, a shamanic training, maybe, I can't remember the timeline, 6-7 years ago. And she sits us down, and I still remember this, you know, I remember sat there and I was thinking to myself, how I'd gone from this like good girl academic to being in this room and everyone was wearing ponchos and I was in the middle of the British countryside. I was like, how am I here? What happened? Like, but I knew that I needed to be in that room. And Chris says, here's the thing. You've been taught that you're physical, right? And that's not actually true. You're physical, but there's also an emotional and mental plane. There is a spiritual plane and there's an energetic plane. And she created what I lovingly call the map of the human, the map of the universe. And suddenly I had, and I've very much simplified what she taught, but suddenly I had this infrastructure to work from. I'm very mathematical, I'm very like logical, which some people are surprised by in a spiritual person, but I see everything in structures. And I realized, oh, nutrition, physical body. But if we're not doing the work on the emotional and mental body, physical body is only 25% of the puzzle. So what we need to do for total transformation is have our modalities in our physical body, our modalities in our emotional and mental body, our modalities in our spiritual body, and our modalities in our energetic body. And when you put them all together, guess what? You've got a complete puzzle. I mean, I keep finding puzzle pieces and I think I will for the rest of my life, right? But what I noticed is that I actually started to experience transformation. And something that I heard from people around me was, you know, how is Hannah changing so much? Whether it's going from, you know, earning a certain amount of money and not being very successful to suddenly being successful, right? Having very damaging relationship patterns to the complete opposite of that. And so people started asking me, what's she doing? How is she doing this? This doesn't make sense. When my mum finally passed away, I realized, you know, I've gone through 7-8 years of the pain of not knowing, you know, the pain of ignorance. I was like, this is my dharma, to create a school, right? To actually educate people on what it means to be a human being, how the the universe works. And so the amount of modalities that I know comes from a hunger that you only know if you've been in a truly desperate point in your life. And for that, in many ways, I'm grateful, even though I don't revisit it. And I don't think that we need to go to that level. Well, bigger question. Sometimes I believe that that's the journey that we've agreed to prior life. These are my spiritual beliefs. You don't have to believe them. I don't feel that I need to go back to that place, but I'm grateful for that place. And so people are surprised. They're like, you're 31. Why do you know so many things? You look like you're 3. Why do you know so many things? And that's really the truth. It's being in all of these situations that made me realize it was my job to find a solution, right? Instead of just being the problem.
That is so powerful, Hannah. Thank you for sharing this. And I think one thing that really stands out here is knowing you've had a pretty solid growth journey, let's say, right? A lot of times we look at entrepreneurs and we're like, how did they get there so fast? How did they, become so successful? How did they make so much money in such a short amount of time? And I do think, obviously, there is a lot to do with all of the time that you spent prior to your success of building that foundation of who you are, knowing all of this, healing yourself. So I would love for you to tell us, why is that important also in a business perspective? Like, why is that important in business, knowing these healing modalities, spirituality, the energetic lens, the emotional lens? Why is that important when it comes to business as well?
I built very fast, which again was very surprising for many people because I didn't come from a business background. I came from a healing background. And it frustrated some of my entrepreneurial friends that came from their business degrees at university. And they're like, how is she getting these results? There's a paradigm that I live in that I learned through my journey. And that's when you learn how to create from the inside out. It doesn't matter if you're creating 1 million, 10 million, a new partnership, healing transgenerational trauma. It's the same formula. It's the same formula. A lot of people go to business and they try and force to success. It's a very hard path, right? Can I elbow grease my way? If I work 14 hours every day, can I get there faster? If I push more, if I do more sales calls, and the truth is that is a limited approach because you're not using all of the resources that are available to you. The physical world is 25% of the universe. There are all of these other planes of reality that if you learn to master are actually more than the physical. Now, I'm not one of these people that is saying I meditate and then my business built for itself. Like, no, I work very hard. I'm very focused. I'm extremely disciplined. I love business. For me, it's like, I like any problem that I can solve. And for me, business is just like a series of problems. Like each next financial level, I'm like, oh, there is a formula to get there. And now I get to be the person that finds it. It's unbelievably fun to me. Even challenge is unbelievably fun to me because nothing can feel as challenging as being in a hospice for 3 years, So I'm like, yeah. I think that's been very helpful for me as well. But I'm surrounded by a lot of entrepreneurs that have been in very business-centric trainings. And sometimes they learn beliefs that are unhelpful. For example, my partner is ex-military, 13 years in the military, 2 wars and a sinking ship before the age of 19. That's his tagline. And so he learned that we get things through force. Because, he's a huge guy. I look like a pixie next to him. He's, and that's the way that he's learned life and the world. My secret power and what I teach people is a lot subtler. It's less about forcing and it's all about how can I internally create? How can I utilize all of the resources that are available to me? Primarily internal. Business, in my opinion, is, yes, about taking action and doing things, but more so than anything, it's an inner game. How do I respond when someone thinks something negative about me? How do I respond when my launch fails? How do I respond when I thought I was going to hit X amount of money this year and I don't? How do I respond when I get the dreaded hate page? I got one. How do I respond when one of my clients gives me feedback and it makes me feel criticized and I've got to deal with the big feelings that I've got? How do I respond when someone doesn't pay their payment plan? How do I respond when the industry changes and what used to work doesn't? These are all inner things. You spend the time mastering your inner reality, there is nothing that you cannot have. Added piece to that. You spend the time mastering your inner reality and you're willing enough to be patient and you're willing to tweak it a little bit and get it wrong on the way. There is nothing that you cannot have. It is the same formula again and again and again. It is not hard, and yet it is at the same time.
I love what you say so much because I feel like a lot of people struggle with not letting the external affect their internal, right? It's something so common of like, but the results are not there. How am I supposed to still believe? How am I supposed to still hold the faith? How am I supposed to keep going when nothing on the outside is working out? What would be one thing or one exercise or one simple shift you would tell a client that would help them get out of that mindset?
The external reality is always going to affect you in some way because we're living it. If you've got someone who comes to you hugely stressed, this isn't working, this person said this, I feel upset about that. They're on this like drama wave, right? That we go into as humans. Lots of humans are addicted to drama. That's part of the healing process. The one thing that you can do is curate a space and cultivate a space to actually know who's within you, right? You only feel like you're almost beaten up by the external world when all you do is be in the external world. So you wake up every day, you have a coffee, you run to your client call, you tell yourself that you're going to spend some time with yourself, and yet you don't, right? You go then from one meeting to the next meeting with undesirable results, you don't pause, then you get back, you have an argument with your partner, your kid screams, they want something, you do the next day, next day, next day, next day. Next thing you know, it's been 3 months and there's not been space for you. So how are you expected to create inside out, you know, if all you've done is be out? You're living a life of automation, you're living a life of firefighting, right? That we all go through this to experience contrast, to see the difference, but there is an easier way, and it does take time to learn it, and it starts with being able to pause, right? Like before I get out of my bed every single day, I have 2 pit bulls. I love my pit bulls. I'm quite naughty. I let them sleep in the bed, which is quite funny with me and my partner and 2 enormous pit bulls. He's like the human pit bull, and there's 2 huge pit bulls. And so every morning I wake up and I say good morning to my pit bulls, and they probably lick me. And I lay in bed. My partner's up. He's been up since probably 5 o'clock. I do not do that. But I lay in my bed and I just be with me for a second. Like, what have I got to do today? Like, you know, how does that make me feel? And you know, and I'll see things going desirably. So, you know, if I've maybe got a very big sales call, or I'm pitching something, or I'm teaching something, you know, before I even put my feet on the floor, it's like, okay, I'm sending the energy that I want to send to that. I'm seeing in my mind's eye how I want things to go. I'm spending a second just to create a sense of like peace within me, right? Like just practicing feeling the feelings of peace, feeling the feelings of regulation. I might take a few breaths. And the truth is, this has taken less than 10 minutes. Well, actually, I'm a bit of a daydreamer, so it usually takes 10 minutes, but if I'm left to my old devices, it's like 3 hours later. My partner's like, Hannah, are you okay? You're going to come out of the cave? I'm like, no, leave me here. It's so nice. But I will do that throughout my day, you know, and it can be a second. My assistant is like one of my greatest raving fans. She's been with me the whole time. She does every single class, even though she doesn't need to, she does, and she watches them again and again and again. And, you know, the fact that we work together on a team, we practice things and it's fun and it's easy. It's as easy to do it as it is to not, right? There's so much, and there's other layers to that, but start with the pause, because the pause interrupts the pattern and the stress is just a pattern. As adults, we recreate the emotional environment of our childhood. If you had a childhood where the dominant feeling was lack of safety, if you had a childhood where the dominant emotion was there's not enough, if you had a childhood where the dominant emotion was fear, even if you're consciously trying to do everything different to that as an adult, you'll keep creating that dominant childhood environment. The pause gives you choice to change, to choose something new. Why did my mother get ill and die? Can't prove this, but I come from a family of refugees, right? Civil war in Spain wasn't a joke. Transgenerational trauma is not just a woo-woo word out there. It wasn't until I dealt with, you know, the fact of what happened to my family and what that did to my nervous system, that when I dealt with that, that's when I started to feel peace in my life, you know? And that's what I infuse into the business, imperfectly, because I'm also a human being. But yeah, the pause is the number one thing.
You speak a lot about energy, and obviously everyone talks about energy is important and your energy comes first. What is energy? What does it mean? And why is it important?
Such a big question. What's helpful for you to know is that what you can see, right? What is physical is just denser energy. But just because you can't see anything here doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? So you've got Wallace D. Waddles, he talks about the formless substance. You see Joe Dispenza, he talks about the quantum. You go to a yogic teacher and they'll call it something else. And you'll go study the shamanic tradition, they'll call it something else. But ultimately, everything is energy and everything is vibrating, right? There's this beautiful video on Instagram. I think he's holding a tuning fork and he's holding it at different vibrations. And you can see the different vibrations lead to a different result. You can see some things are attracted to the tuning fork when it vibrates at one thing, some things aren't attracted to the tuning fork when it vibrates at another vibration. Everything in our universe is energy. Everything. Everything has a frequency, right? I always say this to my clients. I'm like, you think that you're a human being, and then we're very, serious human beings, and we go to work, we've got business. But how I see you is you're all Teletubbies. You've got like this little thing sticking up from your head, and this is a sensor, and it's emitting a frequency at every single moment. That's part of how you create your life, And this is no longer just ancient wisdom. We've got people like Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza. I mean, I think we've got Dr. Larry in Bellwether as well that is showing the science behind this. Not 100% my job. I'm mostly about the tools of transformation. But this isn't just a fun concept that we like to talk about anymore. We're realizing that this is real. How does energy affect business? Okay, we've got person A, we've got person B. Person A is terrified that money's going to run out, right? Terrified. They're also a Teletubby. I like to have fun with the healing work. I come from a lot of trauma healing, so I like to have fun with it. What frequency are they emitting if their dominant thought is it's all going to run out? Their dominant vibration is lack, fear, right? Now that person, because they're in lack and fear, what do? They do more action. Okay, let me get this launch plan. Let me invest in this person. Let me get this other coach. Let me push harder. How can I work one more hour? And then they're frustrated, right? Because they're getting results, but it's like slow and it's painful. That person is often going to look outer world. Well, what other coach can I get? What other strategy is going to save me? No, baby, you're a Teletubby. Pause. Let's shift the frequency. That's what I teach people. You've got someone else, and the frequency that they're emitting is, you know, I'm safe, I'm protected, I'm cared for. You know, financial freedom is a frequency, not a number. They're feeling that. You might find that person kind of goes and does the planning perfectly. Please don't hear me saying that they're meditating on a cave without speaking to people. They're still doing things, but they're following their intuition. They're having fun, right? So much money, right? Action with frequency is the formula to get what you want. That's a little bit about energy.
I think what you say is powerful, because I think a lot of people fall into that of what you said, like next solution, next strategy, this didn't work, let's do the next thing, and you end up never getting there because you don't do the energy, right? You don't do the alignment work of healing those parts of yourself that need to heal. And I would love for you to touch on one thing that I have when I started working with you years ago. One thing that really came up for me was in my business, when I started my business, how everything was mirrored back to me in my business of the things that I needed to heal within me. Can you speak a little bit more on that, on how that happens, how the universe or your business shows you those repeated patterns of the things that you haven't healed inside of yourself?
Everything in life is healing you. Business, partner, dog, cat, everything. People say, I don't know where to begin my healing journey. I'm like, look at what's not working in your life. Start there. You are going to have so many examples to go with. Things to heal, we do not have in life. Do you know what I mean? So this is like what you said to me, Hannah, how did you create your first million so quickly? How did you create the money so rapidly without any business experience? Like this, it didn't make sense, and it still doesn't make sense. And I really like to play in a plane of just surprising people, right? When you study shamanism, you're taught the laws of the universe. This is very much Bob Proctor work. I worked with one of Bob Proctor's top coaches for a long time. I'm actually in her mastermind now. First law of the universe, right? Life is a mirror to you. What does that mean? All life does is feedback what you believe to be true. And life doesn't do this to punish you. Life does this to be like, look, this is what do you believe? Do you like that? Do you want to keep that? Or do you want to change it? Let me give you an example, okay? It's not about business, it's about relationships. As a child, I was slightly odd, as I'm sure you guys are shocked. And I was bullied at school, right? And I, all of these things. And I wasn't, how can we put this? Like the top, I'm Spanish. I grew up in an English school. The ultimate desirability in this English school was the blonde girl with the blue eyes, of which I was not. So what did I learn about me as a child? I learned that I'm hard to love, right? On top of that, during my depression, my family didn't understand it. Hannah's difficult, right? And so that became imprinted on my unconscious mind. I'm difficult, I'm hard to love. And I had this succession of relationships that were just really crap, really bad for various reasons. And I kept having this same feeling, I'm difficult to love, right? Why does this never work for me? And it wasn't until I sat down and I said, Hannah, these relationships are just mirroring back to you what you believe about you. You can do this, right, for the rest of your life, and it's not going to change. You can change partner as many times as you want, right? Thinking that it's the partner's fault. But whilst you're vibrating or you're holding this belief system, you're always going to be a match for, I'm not lovable. All life is doing is holding a mirror up to you, right? So when I sat with that, I was like, oh, okay. Do I want to believe that I'm not lovable? No. Do I Do I like the results of being in relationships where I don't feel lovable? No, I have suffered enough. We are done. We own this. I did the work. My relationships change. I'm in a long-term loving relationship now. I don't ever feel that, right? Business is the same, right? Every result that you have in your business right now is a match to you. How do I know that? It's because it exists. Because it's formulaic, right? I used to love algebra as a child. I feel like the universe is giving us all of these formulas, but we're not pausing to listen. So let's say you've gone through, let me think of an example. One of your clients, wait, Jess, can you tell me a problem in business that you've experienced? Or a problem that you've heard your clients experience?
Scaling, for sure. Scaling the business, I would say.
Okay, but I need to be more specific. What's happening?
You have a certain financial goal, and no matter how hard you try, you're not getting there.
Okay, beautiful. Love that. Super simple, right? You've got a financial goal. You've been working hard on it. You've been doing all the right things. You've got all the coaches. You've built your email funnel. You're doing all your things and you still don't achieve it. Same thing as the relationships. You've got to sit down and you ask yourself, how am I a match to this undesirable result? The question and the answer is going to be different depending on the person. It could be very simple. I don't see myself as successful. Therefore, you cannot be. I see myself as a failure. Therefore, you will be. Not because you are a failure, but because you believe that you're a failure, right? Because you don't believe that you can, so you won't. You're that powerful. Everything that you believe become true. If you don't like the result, change the belief. Cause is consciousness. Cause is belief, right? We're trying to change our external reality through changing the effect. It's the slowest, most inefficient way to do it, right? Now, it's going to be different, and this is what I work with people. We identify what in them is creating the undesirable result. So I don't feel good enough to have it. I believe, or I see myself, because we manifest our identity, I see myself as inexperienced. I see myself as a little girl. Of course, you won't scale it. Every single level in business is going to require an internal attunement, right? Internal attunement will lead to intuition-led steps that would lead to the next result. So I believe that everything in my business, desirable or undesirable, is healing me. Therefore, nothing is wrong and all is good, right? Last year, I got a hate page and I got blackmailed. We got to a certain cash flow and, I shared it on social media. I'm not sharing as much of this on social media anymore. I shared it on social media and I got blackmailed and I got this hate page and there was this succession of events of people that were very angry about the success that I'd got to, which was very surprising to me. You can stay in the drama of that, right? I was very upset about it. Or you can sit down and say, well, how am I a match to this, right? My father, my whole life had told me being successful is dangerous, right? In childhood, I was bullied. I wasn't used to fitting in. So I got to do all of this healing work and then all of that stuff cleared up. It's not that people aren't going to do that kind of stuff again. It's that I really just don't care. It set me free. So your business is going to set you free internally. Your business is going to heal you, right? And it becomes the ultimate journey of rising your consciousness. And you get to become very much the ultimate version of you. That sounds so corny. I don't like the linguistics on that, but it's still true.
I think what you just touched on is also kind of the upper limits, right, of yourself in terms of, oh, I have this goal, I get there, and you're reaching an upper limit. Can you tell us more about, what are upper limits and how can you break through those upper limits?
Life is a manifestation of your unconscious mind. Your unconscious mind has many facets. Upper limits is a facet of your unconscious mind. Okay, so it's a conversation within a conversation. What are your upper limits? So as a child, you will have had an emotional thermostat that is set for how much good that you can hold, including love, including money, including success, right? So I had a pretty good childhood. I came from a family of refugees on my mother's side, post-war on my father's side. My mum struggled with mental health. So this is, I feel like I need to put a trigger warning here. My mother tried to take her life in pregnancy with me. She was put on antidepressants and there's a story there. The point is, I was born already 3 months on antidepressants, and there was a very, very high level of anxiety, right? Very, very level of anxiety. My mother loved me, but she was very anxious. My mother loved me, and she wasn't very attuned to herself, okay? We need to be able to distinguish between parental love and their ability to give a child what they want, right? Or need for healthy development. This is GABA mate stuff, and there's a lot of research on this, and I'm not going to go on a tangent on this because I want to answer the question. So for me, my upper limits were feeling peace, right? Because my natural environment was anxiety, fear. Something's going to go wrong, something's going to happen, there's fear. You've got to imagine, okay, think about the life of people that have been evacuated from their country because of war, right? Franco, people don't realize this. Franco was the third dictator in Europe, except he won. Except he won, right? Can you imagine living in a country where Hitler lived for 30 years in power? Can you imagine the fear of the children? That programs someone's body, and that's passed down from generation to generation until someone says, this stops with me. So my upper limits was when I'd felt peaceful and free for like a day. Then I would have anxiety because I'd be like, oh God, this is not normal. I should be stressed, right? And, you know, this is all sorts of childhood environments. It's not just if you've come from this type of lineage. And so we have a thermostat for how much positive sensation we can hold, how much positive sensation, which could be peace, which could be money, which could be love, which could be approval, which could be just feeling good in our lives, right? And so when we touch our upper limit, it's almost like a thermostat. You know, if you've got a room and you've got a thermostat, it's got a point where the thermostat says this is too hot and you make the room cooler. Well, our unconscious mind works in the same way. We felt too peaceful. This is no longer safe. And so what happens is unconscious mind, right, it's the computer of the body. So what it will start to do is initiate a behavior or a story or a thought form or a drama to play out to bring you back to the emotion, right, which might be anxiety. So if you're trying to heal from anxiety, if you're trying to heal from stress, we need to be looking at how much peace you can hold in your body. This is very much a somatic process. There's loads of processes to do this. But in business, we have upper limits around money, right? How much money is safe for me to have? And you'll know your upper limits because you never get beyond that point, right? You see a lot of these big coaches, they're like, it took me 8 million to hold one in my bank account. It took me, you know, and we blame ourselves for this because we don't understand our human being inner technology. You want to hold more money, you need to raise the thermostat unconsciously. And this can be a process. It's not usually like it goes like this and everything is perfect. We like to think that. It's a little bit like, right? So if you're stuck at a glass ceiling, as people call it, or as a financial level, you know you are if you always end up at the same amount in your bank. You're like, whatever I do, however much I make, I've always got the same amount. It's an upper limit problem, right? We need to program allowing more good in. Actually, we need to teach your unconscious mind that you're safe when there's more good, because your unconscious mind will always choose familiar over anything that's new, even if the new is better. So we have to teach the body. So a lot more that you can talk about with upper limits. This is a Gay Hendricks piece of work, and I've just kind of taken it to other elements, but Gay Hendricks wrote the book, I think it's called The Big Leap, that's very interesting, and it really outlines this, if you guys are interested.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's like a common thing. We were talking about this too, of my own upper limits. So it's good to have that refresher, because a lot of times you can get so stuck in your own mind and feeling like, oh, no one understands, there's no solutions. But hearing you speak, you know, people get all of those puzzle pieces that I think a lot of times people are missing, of like, okay, I need this, I need that, and I need that. Now, one thing I find also fascinating about you is, and I was speaking to Tamsin about this, Tamsin is a person that works with you, of how quickly you are able to adapt and change. As, how can I say this? You're very quick at making a decision and being like, okay, let's pivot, not this, we're going to do something else. And I would love for you to speak on that, because I feel like a lot of times, you know, I know it myself, being a business owner, I have this idea in my mind and I'm like, this needs to work. And this is the only way that it's going to work. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to keep fighting and going to make it work. And what I've seen in you is like, okay, this doesn't work. Let's pivot. Let's see if there is another thing that might feel more aligned with me, or this or that. And I would love for you to speak more on like how it's okay in business to pivot. Now, also with the new mastermind, right, that you've created, just kind of would love for you to speak more on that, and where that inspiration and that trust is coming from that you cultivated, you know, where you're like, okay, you know what, I'm okay with trying something new, I'm okay with pivoting, and I'm okay with seeing what's going to happen.
You have to remember the context of my life to understand why I'm like this. When my mother died, that felt like the worst case scenario, and I still survived. Try me. Do you know what I mean? I'm frightened, but I'm not frightened, because I know that I can deal with the worst case scenario. We take life and business too seriously. We get too plugged into, I need this email funnel to work for me to feel good as myself as a person. And we don't realize that there are much bigger, important threads to our lives. I do this process with my clients. It's very intense. You're probably not surprised after hearing me speak for a little bit. And I close your eyes. I'm going to take you in an altered state of consciousness. And we're going to go to the end of your life. And you're going to tell me what mattered and what didn't. No one at the end of their life goes, oh, I really wish that email funnel worked. It allows me to have very little attachment. I'm like, I know the goal. I don't care about the path, right? Here's also a thing. I'm obviously very spiritual, clearly. And I've probably invested close to 200K in mentors, you know, over the last 4 years, maybe more, maybe a quarter, I don't know. I don't have the exact number. I worked with a lot of personal development, energy-focused people for a long time. And then I started seeing the big business people online saying, well, energy is not really a thing. Like, you've got to go the business way. Like how you hear, some of you guys might preach that. I'm just going to give you my opinion, right? No, none of you guys have to agree with me. I'm just going to tell you what I think. So I went through a phase of, I was like, okay, I'm going to hire the bro marketers, right? Their marketing is so good, I'm going to hire the bro marketers. Guess what happened? I made less money than ever before, and I had a really, really sad time. Because it all became about the physical. It all became about, let's get, it's not about that. It's not about that. You can have anything that you want, but tap into you first. So I did that, and I had to go through a process of coming back to myself, and then everything worked again. The reason that I'm able to trust is that I live my life in devotion to soul, and I live my life in devotion to God. And I don't use the word God in the religious sense. This isn't about religion. This is about a feeling I have. I'm also psychic. I see things. I do, like, you know, there's all of these elements. But for me, it's spirit and soul first, business second. So pivoting feels like less of a big deal. Of course, I'm scared, but I'm not scared of being scared. I'm not scared of falling. I know I would survive because I've survived before. You know? And so I think that we need to let go of getting it right. I think we need to let go of taking the perfect path. It's going to be messy. You're a human being alive on planet Earth, right? Have fun with it. For me, business is like painting a canvas, right? You're painting something beautiful, but sometimes you're going to do a wrong stroke. So what? Paint another one on top of it. Can we relax a little bit? Can we take it less seriously? You're going to get there in the end. Final thing that I want to say on this. My father, at 50 years old, not 15, 50, as in I was 5 years old, he was 50, 50, decided, I don't want to be a teacher. I want to be a Norwegian crime fiction translator. Yes, guys, that job is made up. That is not a job. Imagine how cool I was at school. My job, my dad's a postman. My dad works in a business. My dad's a Norwegian fiction translator. The 5-year-old kids looking at me and they're like, what? He did a master's at 50. And he had the bravery. Everyone thought he was insane, right? He became hyper successful in the 70s, the only European to have won awards in America for translation, right? In his late 60s, 70s. And he'd call me up when I started the business. He calls me Hannah and go, Hanny, here's the thing. You think you want to get to the end, but the end is like eating a cake and you're already full and it's done. He says the journey is really the best part. And I'm a long distance runner. I've always been a long distance runner. I took a little break. I'm coming back to it now, right? You're a good runner if you enjoy running. You're a good business owner if you enjoy business owning. It's not about getting anywhere. It's not about getting anywhere. You will, right? It is, as cliche as it sounds, about the journey, about who you become, about painting your own specific, unique masterpiece.
I love everything about this, obviously, as always. I love everything about you. So it's very inspiring to hear you speak. And I do wonder, obviously you said you work with so many coaches, so many mentors over these last 4 years. Who would you say 1 or 2 people have had the biggest impact in your life and in your journey?
The Spirit of the Inca, Chris Waters, the first shamanic training, because it taught you the infrastructure for life. Hina Khan, who trained with Bob Proctor, very much inner work for outer success. Guys, I think, what's really interesting that I witness is that as humans, we find it hard to accept that we create inside out. We find it hard to accept responsibility for our lives, I've seen both of these teachers, people saying it's not just the inner work. And I felt that at times, but it really is important, right? They've been brilliant. I worked with Brendan Kane. He gave us the foundation of my business a couple of years ago. I think he's really good. I didn't do much of his social media stuff, but his business plan it is the foundation of our business. You do need structures and you do need strategies. I'm not saying that, I would say those have been the three that have probably made the most impact. The shamanic map, understanding the laws of creation, and being given a strategy that is really, really simple, but works.
What would you say has been the craziest thing you have manifested?
Oh, so many weird things. I mean, we can go crazy. I mean, I live in a house. It's funny. I live in a house that's being sold for 5.1 million, right? I was literally sharing a flat paying like 300 euros for my little room like a few years ago. So the house is fun. I mean, my partner is the best thing, he's something, we've been together for 3 and a bit years, coming up to 4. He's something that I feel grateful for every day, And then there are the silly things that I've just had a thought and then they happen. My health as well. I've used a lot of the power of the inner. I had a lot of chronic health problems after being a primary caregiver. For those of you guys that have had those type of roles, you see that it's hard on the body, right? Getting my energy back, getting my hormones balanced. Those are the main things that come to mind. But here's what I want to say about manifestation. Instagram teaches it wrong. It makes it sound like it's a bubblegum concept. right? It's not just I manifested this because it's a house and I can put that on Instagram and say, look at me in my house. Manifestation is a word that's used in commonly, you know, to describe the process in which we create from the inside out. We're always manifesting with every thought, with every frequency, right? We're always creating. So what's the greatest thing that I've manifested in my life, right? You ask me in a year, what's the greatest thing that you've manifested? My life. I love my life, right? And the house isn't as important as the coffee with my partner and the kiss from my pit bull. It's all life and it all matters.
You're the person that really opened my eyes up to what manifestation really means, because you're so right. I remember being 17 and listening to law of attraction videos on YouTube, and it was all very, how you say it, it had nothing to do with inner work and understanding that you had to heal yourself first in order for these things to be able to come into your life. And I think you were the first person who opened my eyes to that. And I was like, that's why I'm not manifesting anything, because there are parts of me that I have to heal first. And it all started to click for me. Guys, by the way, if you do have any questions, please put it in the chat so that we make sure we still have some time. Otherwise, I do have one last question for you, which is, or two last questions for you. First, what is it right now that you are working on? What is right now your big vision that you're working on?
So I'm a creative in everything that I do. We scaled to 7 figures. It was fun. It's not that I'm not appreciating it, but like, I knew that there was more, you know? And I'm a bit bored of what we see in digital marketing. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's like, it's just not me. Like, it has to be fun. It has to be light. It has to be authentic to me. If not, I don't want to do it. So we've been working on new strategies to scale businesses to multiple millions that are very distinct to what we see in the online space. That's what I'm going to say about that, because I'm not teaching or training people in this before, or I'm not doing it, you know, yet. So I'm very excited about building a new way that is already giving pretty incredible results. We're creating a members club for people who are highly successful, but also impact orientated. It's a mix of online and in person. It's a mix of the transformation work and networking. And it's also bringing luxury wellness. So that's one thing that I'm working on. I'm also an investor and a fractional founder for a mixed-use real estate project in Dubai. So I'm creating very high-level healing curriculums for very luxurious elite places. That's something I'm excited about. I start a job on TV next week. So everyone, you've got to send me love for that. It's just a 5-minute segment on Good Morning Spain, bringing the healing work to Spain. So I'm very focused on, I mean, I love digital marketing and I love everything that I've had until now, but my focus has gone from, I'm building this school to more planetary, global, higher level impact, and aligning with those who have the same vision. I believe that we've all got different levels of, not different levels as in better or worse, but we're all holding a different genius. And when you bring all those geniuses together, you create a tapestry that creates the results that are so rich that we couldn't do on our own. I'm about that at the moment.
Love that. So how can people work with you? How can people find you? How can people reach you?
My Instagram is Hannah spelled Jana, to confuse you all. Bartlett, Bartlett, Alonso. Send me a message, send me what you're looking for. We have programs where we train people in modalities, we certify people, and then we've got the members club for people that are a little bit further along on their journey. We do in-person experiences. Got lots of things going on. So it's just better that you send me a message.
Amazing. This was so great, Hannah. I really appreciate you. It was so insightful, and hearing you say all of these things, rounding it all up, and really for people to see, you know, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is what you said, that you manifested your life, and that's really all that matters, and everything else is just a beautiful byproduct that is fun and that we get to enjoy the journey. So is there any last word that you would love to share that you feel like it's important, or that we cover everything that you wanted to say?
We get so attached to the things, right? I want the car, I want the house, I want the wardrobe, I want the partner. And we put all of our worthiness and positive feelings in that. When you do that, you miss the point. You're not better of a human being when you've got the car and the home and the partner. And I've got a lot of those things. It doesn't make me better. It's fun to have them. If I didn't have them, I moved from this house to an Airbnb next week. It doesn't make me less worthy. So touch lighter, have more fun. Don't put all of your worthiness in your results, right? Have fun on the way. There's more to that, but let's close it with that. Let's close it with that.